Good afternoon and welcome to Monaco, a remarkable circuit once described by Nelson Piquet as a bit like flying a helicopter in your living room. Dodgy analogies aside, the sight of talented drivers millimeters from the barriers is a stirring one, and certainly it is around these 2 miles. It's a place steeped in so much history, and right now we're about to make some more. It's qualifying for round 3 of the 2017 Formula 2 Championship. I'm your commentator, Alex Jakes. So among the stunning scenery on a fine day, as you can see, we're going to have one of the qualifying sessions of the season. But as in all things at Monaco, it's not quite that straightforward. It's a unique for the season split session. Odd numbered cars are in one group, even numbered cars in another. It's odd first, that was decided by a ballot earlier this weekend. The top 3 in the championship go in Group A. That's Leclerc, Giotto and Ollie Rowland are top drivers in the championship in this group. We've also got Delatraz, Matsushita, Ralph Boschung, Jordan King, who was 3rd on the grid this time last year in GP2. A man who went very well indeed in practice, that was Sergio Canamassas, who was right up there in 2nd, the best we've seen for him in this machinery for quite some time. Johnny Cecotto, a former winner in this car back in the GP2 guys, and Sean Gallel, who had a much better showing up in 12th position. So instead of the usual half an hour, everyone out, set your lap time, come back to the pits, maybe have a wait, maybe set a time in the gap. It is a different session for everyone in the field to deal with. And Ralph Boschung will get us underway. 16 minutes for both groups. 10 cars in each group. Everyone always complains that they get the rough deal, but this really is an extremely tough group of drivers. And of course they are at the theoretical disadvantage of going out and setting their lap times first. As a result, the grid will be formed. Whoever takes pole starts on pole, but then alongside them on the front row will be the fastest qualifier from the 2nd fastest group, if that all makes sense. It was introduced from 2011 after chaos on the track there for GP2. It continues here, and it makes a lot of sense as well. We saw in practice Nabil Jeffrey was making contact with the car, another car at the Nouvelle chicane. Of course, debris on the racetrack, and when it's only 2 miles, it's even a challenge for these 10 to find your own piece of racetrack that you can try and attack. So a lot of these guys are expecting Norman Nato in the next group to be their real opposition today. It's just a case of driving what's in front of you, and they are all bringing their tyres up to temperature, brakes up there as well. It is a glorious day, as you can tell. 23 degrees air temperature, a track temperature of 43, just a couple of degrees higher than we had earlier on for their only practice session, as they go past that ginormous curb that many thought would be gone by the time we got to this part of the day, but it has survived 2 Formula 1 free practice sessions, a F2 practice as well. Everyone survived it, everyone has navigated around, and now we go on board with Jordan King. It's been very solid so far this season, but he knows he needs to start turning solid points into podiums, and around this track at least, it is so important to set a great time in qualifying and give yourself every opportunity. We saw a lot of cars in the tunnel this time last year, crashing into the wall in the tunnel, and you just saw Jordan King get a little bit loose through there. It is so much tighter than it appears from your pictures. Nothing at fault from the camera angles, of course, just the nature of it not quite translating as Jordan King comes round to the final sector of the lap. Now, unusually, the drivers were able to run this tyre in free practice, so that will give them a real steer in terms of setup. King just having a little breather over the line. They've got to bring that super soft Pirelli rubber up to temperature. Remember, 2 compounds brought to every single weekend. The super soft red wall tyre you're looking at right now is what they're qualifying on, and then the soft tyre that they will do the sprint race on, and they must run both tomorrow. As you see, the front right momentarily getting airborne as he went through Mirabeau, already through what has been called, well, so many different guises, the Lowe's hairpin, the station hairpin. This has always been called Portier. If you're wondering why the barrier's up, they are reclaiming land from the sea in order to build on. It's a very desirable part of the world as Jordan King heads down to the hardest braking point on this 3.3 kilometre course that they know so well. To back corner he's heading to right now is tightened a couple of years ago, so it's not quite the same ridiculous speed into the entry or indeed the exit of the swimming pool. This has been a nice lap for King to get it going, but he brings it in, brings it back to the box. So we've got Leclerc ahead of Cecotto, long way ahead of King, and then Delatraz, Matsushita and Galeo. Ollie Rowland, though, really beginning to attack. Remember, pole last year was a 1:19.1. That was in the same car, but Ollie Rowland was massively ahead, but still did not fancy it. So that would have put him on line for the high 20s, and they all evidently feel they can do a little bit better than that. Rowland, for the moment, remaining in 7th, so having put a heat cycle through the tyres, they all return to the pit lane. Of course, they've got a lot of time in this session, and Luca Ghiotto doing something slightly different. Still warming those tyres, as you can tell at this stage. So the super soft rubber hanging on for a couple of runs, so you're not immediately in trouble if you make a mistake. But we've seen many moments for the Formula One guys earlier in free practice, and they were not running at the absolute limit like these guys will be in a few moments' time. Adjustments made to Galeo's Arden there. Galeo, who earlier this season was testing a Toro Rosso, and a dream come true for him there. All focus right now on car number 1. Here's the championship leader, here's the local boy. Said he was going to speak to the Ferrari Academy sports psychologist about dealing with the pressure that comes from racing on the street that you grew up on. Not only the streets of Monte Carlo, but the street that he has an apartment on, overlooking the start-finish line. He said the practice went very well earlier. You'd expect him to say that. He was fastest of anyone, but then also he said it was the first laps he'd completed around here that weren't on the bus, which I thought was a lovely line. Sergio Canamassas, currently the fastest man out there in the 1:21s. So the second of the 2 allotted super soft tyres are fitted to Ollie Rowland's car, and they will all head out. Staggering, of course, to not get in each other's way is Johnny Cecotto. Not had the season that he was expecting after testing so far. This is the 3rd round of the campaign, and he really does need it to deliver some points. None for him so far in 2017. The most experienced GP2 driver of all time, a rookie like the rest of them, but of course with so much of the experience of the machinery as he goes through the tunnel. An awful lot to prove. This is it's not a cheap way to go motor racing. You've got to justify your seat as well as bringing a budget, and Cecotto running with the Rapax team, just getting held up by Leclerc, but he was only warming the tyres and the brakes, and that's why It's almost vital not to go out in a gap and catch drivers on a slowdown lap. You've got to relatively stick to everyone else's plan around this circuit. Leclerc Giotto is setting personal bests on the racetrack. Here he is, slowing down. Will he give it the maximum attack on this lap? It's all about preparation at this stage, and then it will be about attacking Sandoval for the first time in real anger this weekend on the softest rubber available. And we're on board with the 2015 GP3 runner-up, Luca Giotto, who was a slightly disappointing 6th fastest earlier on. He would be used to being much further up. This is the problem with the traffic, and you can hear he has backed out of it and had to back out of it due to traffic in front. That's Leclerc. So Cecotto has set the fastest first sector of anyone out there. We're joining him right now. Will he be able to set a benchmark in the low 20s? Certainly attacking it with everything he's got at this stage. The much more open exit to the swimming pool, immediately on to La Rascasse. This is now uphill all the way to the final corner, the 19th and final corner on this racetrack. Here comes Johnny Cecotto Jr. for the line, and he goes fastest of anyone by a second to get into the low 120s. I think there is definitely far more lap time out there for them to chase. Delatraz has managed to go 3rd fastest. Boschong is going to be slow over the line on what is surely a preparation lap, so he will continue. Indeed, Boschong is warming the tyres. Here's Galeo down in the Nouvelle Chicane, another part of the racetrack with a very sizable curve on the inside. Sean Galeo going through to back, down a couple of gears, and now it's all about building momentum. Slightly wide through the corner, wouldn't have wanted to be in that exact part of the racetrack, and squirming to get it slowed down at the exit of the swimming pool. Galeo having to really get out of it. Not the lap he wanted at this stage. It's just not flowing at all. We've got Nobuharu Matsushita going very quickly indeed. He's got the latter part of the circuit to go. In fact, we're on board with him. So Galeo gets up to 2nd with a bit of a scruffy lap, so more time in that Arden, but we're on board with the Japanese driver, the most recent Formula 2 race winner, and he is fastest of anyone with a 1:20.0. Ollie Rowland, Charles Leclerc going faster out there. Canamassis is the fastest man in the first sector. So the time's beginning to tumble here in the Group A runners with all the odd numbers. That's how they've been divided up, and Leclerc not the fastest of anyone so far in the first part of the lap. Personal best though in the first and second sector. Not far to go at all now for Charles Leclerc, who comes across the line at his home event to go fastest of anyone by 0.3 of a second. What can Ollie Rowland do in response? He'll go faster still with a 1:19.5, much more towards the times that we were expecting. And Ollie Rowland, who has said time and again that the only weakness, the only thing that needs to be looked at is the qualifying pace. Well, he's delivered a great lap. There is an incident involving Charles Leclerc, that's car number 1, for stalling in the pit lane and not waiting a minute to leave the pit lane after doing so. So could that be a penalty at his home event? Let's hope not. We want to see the championship contenders racing each other at the front. That's exactly what we've got with Ollie Rowland ahead of Charles Leclerc, a reversal of what they've managed. Here's Louis Delatraz for the first time at any street circuit, let alone the most prestigious one anywhere on earth. And Delatraz said it was going to be a difficult weekend to compete with drivers with such experience around these famous streets. Not only is it difficult there, he's got Matsushita in front of him. And Delatraz, he's had quite a difficult start with a 14th and 11th already this year. No signs of it improving for the Swiss driver, who is only able to go 9th out of 10 cars. So once again, we are seeing different cars faster in different sectors of the lap. Canamassas is the fastest man in the first sector. Ollie Rowland, the fastest man in the middle part of the lap. He's targeted that part of the lap. That's where he was struggling a little bit earlier this afternoon. And Leclerc absolutely nailing the final part of the lap, which is right here. Galeo going one more time. 2 minutes and 41 seconds to go. Galeo's lap, we saw it was scruffy in the final part of the lap, looks much more composed. Sean Galeo for Arden across the line, and Galeo improves to 5th position. On board with Nobuharu Matsushita. Coming down through the gears, looking really on the limit, not taking too much curb. Great stuff to watch from the Honda junior driver. He's got a real chance of a Formula 1 seat if he can produce the goods in Formula 2 this year. Matsushita goes for the line. Can he improve? He improves to 3rd. Here comes Charles Leclerc on a charge, giving it everything. We joined him halfway through the swimming pool section. A little bit of a lock-up into Raskas, but he's managed to take that momentum. Fastest man in the first sector, fastest man in the second sector. Leclerc was the fastest man in the third. This is surely going to be provisional pole position, and it is for the local lad, Charles Leclerc, with a 1:19.3. What has Ollie Rowland got in response? Canamassas is going to come over the line, and Canamassas improves to 5th position. Ollie Rowland can't respond. He will stay in 2nd position. Luca Giotto gets himself up to 4th. That was some lap from Charles Leclerc. That really was very impressive indeed. Couple of tenths faster to come back to try and reverse things. We join Jordan King, the British driver, at the Nouvelle chicane. A little bit of work to do down there in 8th in his group, 1.2 seconds away. And that is not the sort of pace he showed around these streets with Racing Engineering last year. 0.6 of a second away. King is setting personal bests in the opening part of this lap, in the middle part of this lap. And King will just be desperate to try and get himself beyond, I would argue, Cecotto. Anything around reverse pole on the grid is usually okay. Jordan King goes forward and displaces Giotto, Cecotto and Canamassas. 25 to go in the session before we hand over to Group E. Ralph Boschung over the line. Can he get himself on? No, he can't, going that quickly. So his attack lap starts right now. The Swiss driver leaving it until the very last possible moment. It's the last lap he will get in today. Galeo so close to clipping the barrier. He just about managed to gather it all up. He is trying to wring every inch of speed from the car. He was in the wall last year as Saint-Devot, and he is really giving it everything he's got. The tyres surely not hanging on now. Thrilling stuff from Galeo. Not sure it's the fastest way round. There's the checkered flag, and he gets himself up to 6th position to demote Cecotto. He's so nearly. Oh, he did make contact with the wall and somehow managed to still improve. Meanwhile, on the racetrack, we've got Nobuharu Matsushita with his front wing off right at the end, and this was a lock-up for Leclerc. He still managed to keep it away from the barrier. There's Matsushita, front wing off. So right at the end, and you can see the pit lane. And that is the challenge of Monte Carlo. So the marshals, there are so many, over 600 of them around this circuit. Well, the guys are on hand. It's right at the end of the session. And now, Group B, the challenge is a 1:19.3 to beat. Otherwise, we are going to continue to have just one pole sitter in the new era of Formula 2, let alone Formula 2 in 2017. So it's all been about Leclerc so far. Another lap to emphasize just why Ferrari see him as their young hope. A driver, of course, who has run in Formula 1 free practice. And this is how Matsushita got it wrong. Is he going to be clipping the curb? He is. You can't do that. A lot of speed, too much curb, and that is what will happen if you fall foul of the giant curb on the exit of the swimming pool. So Matsushita, who qualified third in the end of this group, ahead of King, right at the end, causing a little bit more work for his mechanics than they would like, but he will be pleased to have delivered a top 3 performance. And now it's just a case of getting out of the car. Nothing more he can do. It's time to sit and wait. Here's the confirmation then of qualifying Group A. Roland threw down the gauntlet, but it's Leclerc who responded to take the fastest time. Matsushita ripped a wheel off, but not before he had posted the 3rd fastest time. Then Jordan King, a late effort to go 4th. Giotto in 5th. Then Galeo, very strong, in 6th, despite nearly ripping a wheel off himself. Johnny Cicotto was 7th. Canamassas' practice pace faded. Louis Delatraz was in 9th. And Ralph Boschong, the last of the Group A qualifiers. His pace breakthrough not coming to fruition around the streets of Monaco. Look at how close Charles Leclerc was to clipping the wall, running to the very limit of the maker's name on the tyre. That is how much he wanted to set the fastest time of his group. The track, of course, the track evolution is pretty sizable here, and it might just be a lottery.
We are P1. 2 tenths in front of Roland. We have to see the next group. We are on the first line anyway, so that's already good.
Leclerc being told that he is guaranteed himself a front row start on his home street. And Nobuharu Matsushita giving it everything at the end. Thankfully, his banker time will mean that he stays in a competitive position. Now, Nick de Vries has a 3-place penalty, the black Rapax car you were looking at a few moments ago. So, of all the places you would not want a 3-place penalty, Monaco is definitely it. De Vries, of course, has qualified so far on the front row in Bahrain and then in the top 3 in Barcelona. So that record goes today. We're looking at the only driver change in the field. That was Robert Visoiu of Romania. He returns to the machinery. It's his Formula 2 debut. And looking for a slightly quieter weekend as the marshals go to work on the debris of the exit of the swimming pool. We had a sight there of Prima's Antonio Fuoco, who is looking to try and improve on a season's best 5th on the grid. But this is the danger man for many people. You see there Jules Bianchi on his crash helmet. He said he wanted a crash helmet to remember his friend. And there, Artem Markelov with the distinctive crash helmet as Visoiu sitting at the end of the pit lane awaiting the green light. We remind ourselves one more time, and that was just slightly too much curb. You saw Matsushita soaring away at the steering wheel, imprecise at a circuit that really does require you to weave a very, very finely judged path, and he wasn't able to do so. Getting airborne, reminiscent of what Max Verstappen did in practice this time last year in Formula 1. Didn't ruin anyone's lap though, but for slightly glum expressions on his mechanics' faces, no real problems caused. So in this group, Antonio Fuoco, Gustav Malya, Artem Markelov, a race winner in Formula 2 this year. Alexander Albon, a consistent point scorer, one of only 5 men in the field to score at every round. Nicholas Latifi, a podium finisher, could have been a race winner. There he is on your screen right now. Really talented drivers in this group. The newcomer, Visoiu, Camara, goes in car number 14. Then Jeffrey, who had contact in practice and will be hoping for a slightly more understated session. De Vries with the penalty, and the man that they all think they have to beat, Norman Nato, who goes in the Arden. It's his third round returning to the Arden. Setup, covered already this year that there are a lot of new personnel there, including a race engineer that first worked with Nico Rosberg when he took the GP2 title in 2005. So great pedigree at the famous British racing team that celebrates its 20th year this year. And the queue continues, the heat will be rising. De Vries just ready to begin the process. It will be the same that we've seen before. You can see Russian time waiting with the new rubber. So an installation lap. And then Russian time will pit Markelov. Markelov was in a bit of an intense mood, unlike these guys. Looking pretty chilled at the moment. They know they've got one driver on the front row. Could it be two? Antonio Fuoco, unfortunately, was down in 16th as far as Prima are concerned. So you sometimes see it at the start of the season. You lose a little bit of momentum from one round and it can, well, turn around very quickly. And is that De Vries who has stalled his Rapax? We saw a few issues with the car in Bahrain, and issues again now. Could be just stalling, could be a mechanical issue. No way of knowing at this stage, but the team have the starter on hand. As the rest of the field filter out to begin the oh-so-familiar process of warming tyres and brakes, no tyre blankets, and the drivers have to get everything into the optimal window as they head up the hill. Wonderful illustration of how much they climb. 40 meters up from the start-finish straight to this, the highest point on the circuit. Past the Opera House that gives Massenet Corner its name, Casino Square. Great to see so many spectators staying behind to see whether it's going to be their man, Charles Leclerc, on pole. It's a good lap, but that track evolution, you would think, would carry it certainly in the hands of Nato and possibly Albon as well. Although Albon was very impressive earlier, just behind Nato. They were fourth, Norman Nato fourth, Alexander Albon was fifth. Leclerc, Canamassas and Roland, the drivers who were ahead in practice, have already set their times and perhaps have the disadvantage of having to go first. Beautiful day at a beautiful venue. They've been racing here since 1929, and all of the drivers here in the paddock with a smile on their face. It can be a bit cramped, can be a little bit awkward, but no one minds, because the privilege of racing here really does speak for itself. The pictures will tell the story as they begin to crank things up. Many of them will then head back to the pit lane. Focusing on Camara, who managed to out-qualify his teammate at the start of the season with a 10th place. It was 14th last time out in Barcelona. So he will be, the man from Belo Horizonte will be desperately trying to match his teammate's benchmark. Behind Nato, who is coming off the back of a hugely disappointed weekend where he wore a concerned expression. He knows that he's got the experience and the speed. He was a two-time race winner last year in GP2. As he comes to Formula 2, many people, including his old adversary and the champion from GP2 last year, Pierre Gasly, tipped him to contend for the title. He's a man who's led 18 laps so far this year, but no points last time out, no points in the sprint race in Bahrain. Did look set to win in Bahrain before Markelov's tyre strategy came good in the final laps. So the field absolutely copying what we saw from Group A. Heading out, completing an installation lap, making sure the balance is where the driver is happy with it, pushing at different parts of the lap, return to the pit lane, change the tyres, and then get yourself in the zone in terms of what you need to deliver from the car around the racetrack of 19 turns. The drivers are changing gear 37 times per lap. There's a top speed around here of 166 miles an hour as they head down to the Nouvelle chicane. Pisoyu back to the pits first, setting off the alarm that is so familiar around here. And Nicholas Latifi, a driver who managed to find the wall last year in his first full season using this equipment, returns after a disappointing race that saw victory slip through his grasp, and he will be looking to get on terms with his teammates' time. He will have to really mix it at the front if he's going to do that, with Ollie Rowland having qualified second in Group B. In Group A, I should say. We are now on to Group B. So the Group A incident of car number 9 impeding car 17 has been noted by the stewards. Car number 9 is Ollie Rowland, and car 17 is Sergio Canamassas. Those two have a little bit of history from Silverstone last year of impeding each other. That time the stewards judged it the other way round. Ollie Rowland will argue that it is a circuit in which it is very easy to do. Sure, it wouldn't have been deliberate. See what the stewards make of it. Stewards investigating Leclerc after his stall in the pit lane, investigating Rowland for impeding. And so the advantage with those two under investigation goes the way of these guys. Pretty easy to disregard everything that you see on screen at the moment. The real lap times are about to come. Gustav Malia trying to get some joy for racing engineering. They in no way have had the start to the season that they would have wanted from Louis Delatraz. No points for the Swiss driver so far, but it was first points of the season for Gustav Malia with a 7th and then a 6th. Malia's best in qualifying so far this year is, unfortunately for him, 17th, and that is slightly surprising because he has a personal best in this equipment, albeit in GP2 when he was racing with the Rapax team, of 6th place. So surprising, because Racing Engineering have always found themselves at the front. They were second in the team's championships, team's title battle last year in the GP2 series, but at the moment they are battling for middle to low points and unfamiliar territory for the Spanish-owned and majority French-engineered team. Camera encountering Nato at just the wrong place there. Another example of why this session gets divided up. So Camera, unfortunately, really suffering there from the problem of going out on a different sort of program to everyone else.
Much as you can.
Leave me alone, leave me alone.
So he wants to be left alone, he wants to concentrate on his own. And the youngest driver in the field, who had a birthday earlier this week, the 19-year-old, trying to get himself in to the 1 minute 20s and post a respectable lap time on his first visit to this challenging racetrack. Straightening up the car, and then a drop down kick of oversteer, held it nicely. DRS open on the one zone around this track, and Camera manages to set a 1:21.7, which is not what he would have wanted. A little bit of traffic, it did not look happy. Didn't sound happy either, did he? Here's a driver that managed to crash in qualifying this time last year, Artem Markelov. Racing for the first time in Formula 2 in Monte Carlo, the spectacular winner 1 year ago. He will not want to have to repeat things from 15th on the grid. Want to get himself on the front row, ideally bagging 4 points for pole. Here comes the Russian driver. Where is he going to lower the benchmark to? Comes across the line with a 1:20.9. So fastest man in the final sector of the lap. And in this qualifying battle so far, Latifi, De Vries and Markelov are the fastest men in the first, second and third sectors of the lap. Norman Nato is coming to the end of his warm-up phase, so we've joined Robert Visoyu. Had a personal best of 5th in the GP2 series. That was in his first ever race back in Bahrain in 2015. This is a big ask, but his driving style does favour circuits that are dependent on traction zones for speed. This is one such circuit. So he has a little flirt with the barrier at the back. Not all over the curves, but you wouldn't want to be, not in this machinery. See Formula One really extending things when they're on their flying laps. Danny Ricciardo was all over them on his pole lap for Formula One, but focusing on qualifying for Formula 2. And Visoyu will be learning with every lap that he turns. The tyres have taken such a step forward in that time. Visoyu managing to go second at the moment, albeit half a second away. Now Alexander Albon really lighting up the timing pages at the moment. Fastest man through the middle sector of the lap, just like Leclerc was in Group A. Got to be careful with your throttle application through the final corner, really taking loads of curb. Albon to the line. Where does it put him? Puts him fastest by 1.1 seconds, 19.7 for Alexander Albon. Here comes Latifi. Up through the gears, 37th and last gear change. He goes second, 4 tenths adrift. Here comes Norman Nato, the danger man, the one they thought is the main man to watch for pole, the one that scared Group A a little bit. Here he comes. It's looking very good for him in the middle part of this lap. Can he keep that speed going to the line? No, he just misses out by 1/100th of a second. Nick De Vries, remember, carrying that penalty. Nightmare circuit to get that at, but De Vries, the young Dutch driver, we know that the McLaren Junior is so impressive on one-lap pace. Can he deliver that again? This was the only place that he was out of the points when he ran in the World Series. Here comes Nick De Vries for the line, and he just misses out. So 0.02 of a second between the top 3 in this group. Markelov, by way of response, goes 4th. And so it is so very close between Albon, Nato and De Vries, but the headline to go with those times is, at the moment, Charles Leclerc's time is good enough for a pole position on home soil, and having run in the first group, that would be even more impressive. So back to the pits for everyone. Next is the lap that they can really show their absolute limit. I don't want to put the commentator's curse on it, but this is the first time in a while we've seen a qualifying session without a red flag at this level. Antonio Fuoco, way down there in 10th, 2.1 seconds away. Needs this lap to be special. At the moment, he's 3 tenths away from his former GP3 rival and fastest man in the session so far. Alexander Albon's first sector time. Needs a strong middle part of the lap, just like his teammate managed in an identical car with a very similar setup earlier on, but he's losing time. If he can maintain that, though, he might be around 5th position. Needs a big final sector. The driver, perhaps, with not the most confidence after his last weekend at round 2 in Barcelona. The Ferrari Junior with the Italian team. Antonio Fuoco for the line. Can he get himself up to 5th? No, it's 7th place. And more time lost at the end, although, oh! Alexander Albon really pushing to the absolute limit. Where does he go over the line? It's a 1. Wow, it's first position and he is level with the time. It's a 1:19.3 for Albon. It's a 1:19.3 for Leclerc. Here comes Latifi. Great lap. First position for Alexander Albon. Norman Nato not going very quickly at this stage. So he's abandoned his lap. There's Danny Ricciardo. Looks on. Confirmation then that Albon has got within 200ths of Leclerc's best lap time. So a super close session. Here comes De Vries over the line. De Vries isn't able to improve. Artem Markelov, what's he got for us? Personal best in the first sector. In the middle part of the lap, he's going well. A man who has been victorious around the streets of Monte Carlo, trying to take pole position now. But Markelov can only go second in the group to displace Norman Nato. So great late effort from Markelov, who started way down in 15th last year, looking far better for him at the moment, looking like 4th on the grid. So Markelov, absolutely rapid in the first sector. Under 30 seconds to go in this session. The only man on the racetrack who can now threaten surely for pole is Artem Markelov. Albon's first sector isn't good enough. Nato's first sector isn't good enough. But Markelov is absolutely flying through the tunnel. He's got traffic in front of him. Nick De Vries knows that, gets out of the way. Can't see anyone else in the near vicinity, but if they're on slow down laps, it could be trouble for Markelov. What's he got? This is really on the edge now. This is the difference between pole position and just the front row. Look how close he is. He needs to improve. The time he needs is a 1:19.309. He's not just racing Albon for the fastest time in this session, he's racing for the ultimate pole position today. Can Artem Markelov do it? Kicking it out through the final corner. Now he dips to the line. There's the checkered flag. Artem Markelov can't improve upon Albon's time. Here is Alexander Albon, though. It was an ordinary first sector, but can Albon get it all back in the middle part of the lap? I think he might be able to. We're waiting for the black and red ART. Here comes Alexander Albon. Can he do it? No! He falls just shy with a 19.4 with his final effort of the day. Camera is still absolutely on it at the end here, but he's had a really difficult middle sector. This is about personal improvement for him. He is not a threat for the battle for pole, and getting himself in terrible trouble coming out of the Rascasse there, almost coming to a standstill. Can he get himself off the back row? No, he can't, and he knows it. Malia is 6th, and it means that by the tiniest of margins, with all laps now completed, Alexander Albon is on the front row with his GP3 former rival Charles Leclerc, but it's Charles Leclerc who takes a home pole as Nico Hulkenberg.
Really good job, Alex. You are P1 of your group. You missed the pole for 200 or something like that. But really good job.
So Albon sets a personal best and will head to the front row for the first time in Formula 2. But he's justified the hype. He's delivered on home soil. He is P1 on the streets that he grew up on. He went to school 20 meters away from the final corner. And he's not setting laps around this circuit on the bus anymore. He's setting laps in the Dallara faster than anyone else. And by the tiniest of margins, it's Charles Leclerc who will go from provisional pole pending the official classification from the stewards. Remember, they were looking into him from Group A. That was breath of stuff. Alexander Albon, great effort, so close to taking overall pole. Markelov looked really good in that middle sector. It fell away at the end. Norman Nato was third. Wasn't able to improve on his final run. Nick de Vries fourth, will take a 3-place penalty though from Barcelona. Then Latifi, Malia, Fuoco, Robert Visoyu out qualifying Jeffrey and Camera on his return to the machinery and his first Formula 2 weekend. Well, we're looking at the Ferrari contingent at the moment. Might Kimi Raikkonen be shuffled out in future years for this man? He could do no more. We only have one pole sitter so far. 3 rounds, 3 poles. Charles Leclerc has been magnificent. He's the man to beat tomorrow. Join us bright and early, 11:25 local time, when Formula 2 returns.